Hi there, everyone. My name is Stephanie Paul, and I'm with Paul's Covered Calls. And I did the COVID pivot, going from doggies to dollars. So this is me. I've had a successful doggy daycare business with COVID, zilch, and I needed to find something to do. So this is my story. I'm sharing some of my trades, my thought processes, and just some cool nuances and some tips and tricks that I've learned and read about and experienced and have done along the way. And of course, here is our board of dog rectors. It's myself and Sweet Pea, and we're here to chat about who can execute a covered call. And I'm on Twitter at Paul Called It, and website paulscoveredcalls.com. And so virtually anyone can do this, can participate in covered calls, anyone, and that includes you. So I just want to emphasize that having participated and will continue to participate probably for the balance of my lifetime to a varying degree, I do have my savings. I do have my emergency fund. I do have my 401k. Part of my goal is to eventually pay off my mortgage sooner rather than later. And I do have a financial advisor. And so that's covered calls is another tool in my investment toolbox. And what's interesting about covered calls is there is no scarcity. If you own 100 shares and there's a table for calls and puts, you can conceivably participate in covered calls. And so for me, and I'll get into this in a moment, what are some of my happiness criteria, the reason for being in covered calls that is forthcoming. One moment, please. So I do want to iterate that covered calls are not for everyone, and especially if you suffer from FOMO, and I do have a nice presentation about that, take a moment to look at that because there are varying degrees of FOMO with covered calls. Also, this is not a quick rich scheme. You do need some funds to buy your shares. That's the whole reason why it's covered. You own the shares. So you can't come in this with nothing. You do have to have some money to buy at least 100 shares. And it's not glamorous. And it takes some patience. I've made several mistakes. I like to refer to them as missteps. But with reading, with doing, with understanding, you can minimize those missteps. And also, I have some stocks that I want to keep. And so I have a completely different process as to how I develop my strike prices for those as I do with my other just easy ins and outs at or near the money strike prices. So it's fairly easy to participate. You do need permission from your brokerage firm. You do need 100 shares. You do need cash to get started. A ratio that you need to understand, 100 shares equals one contract. You need 100 shares. And there's various price points from $5, $10, $20, $100, several $100 per share. Bear in mind, again, 100 shares, you're going to need that amount of money. And so, again, if there is an options table available, you can conceivably participate in a covered call. So scarcity in that regards is minimal. And so I have some fairly modest happiness criteria. A 1 to 2% gain per week. I try to ignore the FOMO, especially if my stock is assigned, and it's okay if my stock is assigned. And I do have a separate presentation on what is a covered call, and it talks about that when you see the graph of limiting the profit, I go into that a little bit deeper. But for me, I'm okay with that because I've made my gain through the covered call itself and through a modest increase between the purchase price and the strike price. And so for me, at or near the money strike prices, I'm okay with that. Again, if they're assigned, I'm okay with that as well. I do this on the weekly. I suspect that if I did this on the monthly, I'd just be a little bit bored. So that's why I do this more frequently than others. And also my preference is to participate in stocks that are in that $5, $10, $20 range. I do venture into the $40, $50, even $100, but that is rare. I'm mostly in this $5, $10, $20 range for share prices. And then, of course, with all this effort, it's good to have goals, long-term, short-term, personal financial goals. And so for me, I like to golf throughout the summer, and I don't want to put it on my credit card. So I'm going to participate in covered calls, and they're going to pay for my golf. I also, from a financial goal perspective, I do eventually want to have 2 SPY contracts. And you have expiration dates with covered calls. Typically, they're on Fridays, and they're on a weekly, a monthly basis. What's special with SPY is they have 3 expiration dates per week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I could truly be at or near the money, cycling in, cycling out, rinse and repeating, and making several $100s every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then lastly, another financial goal of mine, albeit modest, and I will accept that it's modest, is that I want to make an additional mortgage payment every 6 to 12 months. I'm older. I know that if I kept that money, I could do more with it using cover calls, especially at the 1%, 2% return every week. But I'm older, and I just want this mortgage gone. So for me, I have my happiness criteria, and I have my goals, and this is why I'm in covered calls. So thanks for joining me. It's a quick opportunity to just sort of tell you a little bit about how covered calls can meet your financial goals. I'm at Paul Called It on Twitter, Paul's Covered Calls. Please subscribe. Please comment. And I've got some cool videos coming up with some nuances, some laddering, some layering, some defensive positions, exit strategies. It's going to be a nice, fun experience. And then lastly, here's my disclaimer. My opinions are my own. My thoughts are my own. And I'll see you every Monday. All right. Thanks so much.